Have you lost your job? Have you lost a loved one? Are you exhausted caring for your parents, for your kids? Well, you can find immediate relief when you read Sheila Mac's new #1 bestseller, Bootstraps and Bra Straps. It contains the Boots formula to move from rock bottom back into action in any situation, especially right now. If life has knocked you down, pick yourself up with Bootstraps and Bra Straps. Get your copy at www.sheilamac.com today.
Here on NBC's KCAA Radio, Mondays at 1 and Wednesdays at 7 p.m. Pacific Time. If you're ready to pull yourself up by the bootstraps and bra straps, enjoy a listen. Here's Sheila.
Welcome to the Sheila Mac Show, reality at its finest. Here we have real people sharing real stories and actionable steps to help you reinvent, rebuild, and reboot your business and personal life on your terms. I'm your host, Sheila Mac, and today we have celebrity healer Adrien Blackwell. Adrien has been featured on many TV shows around the globe, including NBC News, Travel Channel, and Bio Channel. Adrien has a healing background as a Reiki Master-Teacher, Shamanic Healer, Theta Healer, and Medical Qigong student. That was the catalyst for her to create her own modality, Ascended Healing, and her recorded healing and Ascension Codes. Ooh, that sounds beautiful. Well, welcome to the show, Adrien.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, and I'd like to start each show off. This show actually started off after I wrote my new best-selling book, Bootstraps and Bra Straps, the formula to go from rock bottom back into action in any situation. And this last 12 months, we have had every situation that we probably couldn't even fathom before these 12 months. So I like to start off with maybe if you could share with the audience a time in your business or personal life where you had to overcome a tough situation and how you got back on track.
You know, I think the one that comes to mind first is you're in business and you're starting to, something that you love is starting to feel like you don't love it anymore. Mm-hmm. And so that's what happened to me. I was actually a celebrity psychic before I was a celebrity healer, you know, and I spent 1.5 years of my existence hating what I was doing. And I was like, how do you go from being on TV and radio and loving what you're doing to all of a sudden one day just hating it? And I didn't know what to do. I was just like, universe, you got to show me what direction to go in. I was so ready to quit having my own business and actually like going to work for somebody else. That's how bad it was. And I was just like, something's not right. Something's not right. Something's not right. And I know so many, especially entrepreneurs that feel that way, like something is just missing. I don't love what I'm doing anymore, or I never did what I loved in the first place. You know, it's huge. Like people can relate to that. And so what was really funny to me is when I think back on it, I had a friend who kept inviting me to do this healing class. She's like, it's the most amazing thing ever. And I'm just like, no. I said no 3 times before she finally convinced me. And when I took that class, I started to really think back on my life where I started out as a healer. Like the first thing I ever did was a Reiki master and then a massage therapist. And I've taken so many classes and so many certifications, and I'm still saying no to this thing, you know? And so that was how I kind of rebooted everything, was finally just saying yes to a new opportunity and realizing how much it changed my life, my clients' lives. And now I'm doing something that I absolutely love again. And so it's that reminder, if I start ever feeling like I'm off track, if I ever feel like, oh, I'm not liking the work that I'm doing, I'm actually going to pay attention to what have I been led to do next.
Yes, I love that. Yeah. And I think that this year, more than ever, or 12 months, I should say, these last 12 months, because we're in a new year, but it's like the same year. And so this last 12 months, a lot of us have been pushed out of a business or have had to make such changes in our business. And sometimes there's a pushback. Oh, well, you know, maybe you're comfortable, but maybe we're being pushed into something even better or more aligned, or we're able to find something more aligned with what we're supposed to be doing, or, you know, that just feels better once we get settled into it. So stay open to that. That's beautiful. And I'd love to hear more, Adrien, about so you were working as a psychic with all these celebrities and people, And then you're guided to do this healing work. So I'd love to hear a little bit more about the healing portion of the work that you're doing now.
So, like I said, I've been doing this since 2000, like 20 years. This is my 21st year, yay! And so I've been doing this for 21 years. But when I started the healing work, for me, it was really about doing this for my family. Like if my daughter gets sick, I want to heal her. If my mom gets sick, I want to heal her. And so when I did the Reiki, I remember my daughter had she had like an allergic, I don't know if she had an allergic reaction or she was just sick, but her tongue was swollen and her breathing was like, and she was sleeping. And I remember like, if I can't get rid of this in like the next few minutes, I need to take my daughter to the hospital. And so I put my hands on and I'm like, okay, Reiki, work for me. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden her breathing got normal. And I was like, oh, is it working? And I opened her mouth and her tongue went back down to normal. And it was less than 5 minutes. And I was like, see, this is why I want to use this. So for me, it was really about how do I help my family while I'm doing the psychic work? The psychic work was for all of you. It was for everybody that I could help. But for the healing aspect, it was like, this is like a personalized thing for my family. And so I kept training, I kept studying. Like people would come up to me and just be like, I'm supposed to give you this healing modality. Let me share this with you. It was a nonstop thing for 12 years where I was learning, growing, schooling, classes. Again, in my mind, still thinking it was just so I could help myself and my family. And all of a sudden it was like, I think the one that triggered it was the Theta Healing. And once I did the Theta Healing, I was able to bring in the Medical Qigong and I was able to bring in the Reiki, and I started transmitting this energy to hundreds of people over phone calls. Mm-hmm. So my psychic clients, I would be like, can I give you a free healing? Mm-hmm. And now they're like, yeah, I don't want a psychic read anymore. I want the healing, because as a psychic, you go in and you tell people, this is what's going to happen for you. This is what I see. As a healer, I get to go, what do you want your future to be? And how do I help you create that? Mm-hmm. You know, so miracles happen. I did a class called the Master Manifestor course, and I wanted to make millionaires. So I remember saying this in the beginning of the course, like, I want to make millionaires from this. And my client wrote me 2 months later and she said, you wanted to make millionaires? I did it. I'm a millionaire now. I was in a webinar and I was doing healing work, and I was guided to do a special meditation along with a special healing. Then I'm sending this frequency, which is like a sound frequency you're sending out to people. And it was very particular in how I was supposed to send this. And I got confirmation. Somebody had written me a testimonial or their story that when they entered this webinar, they had cancer. When they were in the webinar, they felt it dissipate. And when they went to the doctor, it was gone. And I'm like, I'm not claiming to do that, but thank you for letting me know that's your experience. Yeah. Because if somebody's not ready to heal, it's not going to happen anyway. So it can't be 100% me, right? But it's like you get to work with somebody else's energy and you get to come together in this. I'm starting to realize that healing is a beautiful relationship. It's a beautiful relationship with the other person. So if they're ready and you're ready, you make magic happen. You make miracles happen. And so I'm always getting testimonials from people who are having these experiences because they're ready to have them.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah. And I know I've had a lot of interesting experiences in this realm. And I lived up in the canyon. And this is so interesting. My neighbor had all these birds, older lady, and she raised birds. And she ran over in the middle of the night, knocking on my door because her bird couldn't breathe. And I don't know what was going on, but she says, you know, I know you've done all this meditation and stuff, and come over and pray over this bird or bless it or do whatever you do. And I was like, I don't really do anything. I don't claim to do anything. But I will. So just to calm her down, because she's all alone and,
Oh, yeah.
Like, okay, cool. And I go over and I, did a little healing thing, blessing over the bird, and the bird got better. And it was bizarre to me. I was like, huh, that's kind of cool.
Like, it's bizarre.
For me, I was like, wow. And it was, I don't know if it had a seed stuck or it was like gasping. It was, and then it was fine and it was breathing normal and the bird was fine. Month goes by, another bird, she calls me over. This bird, I felt over the bird and I was like, this bird, I could feel the energy that the bird was like, I am ready to go. and the bird did not make it. I mean, it made it a little bit, but it didn't make it long. And I said, I don't think this bird wants to be here anymore. It's ready to transition. And she was mad at me. I was like, no, I mean, and I was like, but she got over it. But she had been extending the bird's life for a very long time because she loved her birds like her children. And she had over 100 birds. She was interesting. But
A lot of birds.
I'm not kidding. Well, she would sell the birds and raise them for pet stores and all this. She had a license, but I could feel that. I could feel. So sometimes you could do a healing, I would imagine. And this was just my experience with these birds. And I don't know, they couldn't talk back, but that's just what I felt. And I told her that some people it's their time, or they want to transition and they're not ready, or they want to have whatever they're experiencing and they're not ready to let it go. And, what do you think about how to speak to that with the other people around them, where there's like, well, why can't we just fix this? Why doesn't this work on everyone? That letting go of the expectation or surrender, maybe.
I think that's a interesting conversation right there. Is you've already answered the question, which is, everybody is on their own journey, and just because you can heal somebody doesn't mean you're supposed to.
Yeah.
And that's not your job, is to determine what somebody else wants to do. It's kind of like, well, I know how to train somebody to be a doctor, but what if he wants to be a lawyer?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? It's like, you have to respect people's choices, and just everybody's going to die. If you're ready to go, you're ready to go. There's nothing wrong with that. And in this society, it's really interesting how we view death as such a horrible thing. Mm-hmm. In no matter what, unless you're old and gray and you're actually on your deathbed and there's no other choice because you have to go, it's like, if anybody else dies, it's just a horrible thing. They can't be ready to go. And so it's like, no, you let that person make their decision. And if it's not their time, or if something can be done to fix it, then you do what you can, just like anybody else does. And so I'm sure doctors probably have to go through that whole thing, because they have people die on the table and stuff like that, where you have to realize even if you want to, you still can't play God. So that's recognizing your humanity.
Right. And that whole aligned, I don't know, timing. Is it their time, or is it, their wish to move on, to transition? Or
I just kind of like the way you put it, where it's just that they're ready to go. And that's exactly how you describe the birds. Like, the bird wants to go, it's done. People have the same thing. Reiki is taught in hospitals. Or not taught, it's done in hospitals. Because I remember 20 years when I learned it, they were telling us how here's these centers that are actually bringing in Reiki practitioners. So I'm sure there's a lot more happening now. And a lot of people who worked in hospitals would tell you, like, we put our hands on somebody and we have to warn their family, like, if they're ready to go, we're just helping them transition. This won't make them better. It will actually help them transition easier. Mm-hmm. And so there's like this disclaimer that comes with that when people could possibly die, is like, we just help them transition and make it a lot easier, more comfortable for them to actually do it. And sometimes you come back from the brink of death, but that it's up to that person to determine that for themselves.
Yes. Wow. That's so interesting. And now you're working with people through distance healing right now. How does that, I guess, theoretically work? Or?
Well, it's interesting that you say theoretically, because I'm such a science buff, so I love the science behind it. But, some of the stuff that people can actually conceptualize is when scientists have done tests on twins, right? And so they've done these tests on twins, and one twin is in one country and one is in the other, and something happens and one twin knows the other twin is in trouble, or that the other twin even died. How is that even possible? Right. And then they've done tests where they've put a person into like a cement room where nobody else can do anything to them at all. They take their blood, they take their DNA, they put it 20 feet away, and then they stress the person out. Guess what happens to their DNA that's 20 feet away? It's stressed out.
Wow.
So it's like, we have science that's proving that we can affect things at a distance, right? This is not make believe anymore. This isn't just what the ancients taught. This is literally scientific. And just to give people a really clear idea, if you still don't believe it, how are you using your cell phone? It's wireless.
Mhm.
There's nothing attached. How are we talking right now? It's like it's over wireless, right? It's over internet. Our brains were the first one to discover that because we could talk to people. We have brain waves. Like we even hear these words on a regular basis. We hear energy, we hear brain waves, but nobody thinks about what that actually means. Nobody thinks about what it actually means, but a brain wave is a wave that's sent out like a microwave or, a radio wave. It's being sent out. Who's receiving it if we're sending it out? Everybody else. We're the towers and we're the receivers. So that's basically how it works. I've been doing this long distance for the last 20 years. I very rarely had clients in person because I've always had clients all over the world. So it's just always worked this way.
Wow. Yes, that's incredible. And it's really beautiful to be on the receiving end of a healing, let's say, or where something readjusts in your life or your physical body and you notice this difference. That's wow, that's exactly what I needed. And and so that's such a gift. And I'm wondering now, I mean, for myself as a mom, I have these 6 kids. They're all grown. One of them is now a spiritual being. He had a heart condition and he transitioned last year. And it's hard for our family, but it was something since 5th grade. We knew something was not quite right with his heart. And I think it was a gift of extra time. And so with that, though, I have kids all over. Some of them are in the service. They're doing things out there, and there's nothing I can do except for send them love and send them energy. And maybe, there's a time you don't agree or align with one of your kids or this, and you still, as a parent, you can only send them love and energy. And I have a belief that they feel that they know that maybe their I don't know, their DNA cells feel that love energy and know there's something that's there even when they're alone or going through a tough time. And that could be, I think, for a friend. What is your advice for how everyday people, all of us, can maybe put some energy out to shift or give more positive healing to our world right now, which we definitely need?
You described it. Yeah, you send love to your kids. You can send love and prayers to anybody. People are generally doing it. They're not always doing it in the way that's going to bring the best outcome, but you can learn how to perfect a prayer. You can learn how to perfect sending love to where it's only for the highest good of all involved, which is very different than sending like specific healing to certain people because it does require permission just to be in respect of that being and where they want to be. But the whole entire world, we're in this together. This is our world. This is your life. So we all have a right to send that peace and harmony and those feelings into the world because we're always putting some energy into the world. Why not do it on a conscious level? Why not make sure whatever energy we're bringing into the world is a positive energy? Like that's our responsibility in a lot of ways, to ourselves first, so we can get into that space and then to the world itself, because we are creating this world every day, every choice that we make. So the best thing you can do is meditate. The best thing you can do is take a moment just to think, there's peace, there's love, and I'm accepting of that thing that I'm putting out into the world. The more you're able to accept what you're putting out, the faster it's going to work. It's really interesting is I really want to move. I want to move so bad. Like I'm so ready. And I got messages from my guidance. It's not time yet because I want to go live in the country. I want an orchard. I want to be away from people. Yeah. And they're like, every time you do a healing on yourself, every time you do a healing on your client, it's affecting your whole entire city. And so we can't take you out of that city yet. And so I'm like, so it's like, I get to be aware of what I'm putting out there. I get to be very aware that the reason I'm living in this home right now is because I'm putting energy out there, and it makes you really conscious of the energy you're emitting all the time. It starts making you think about those brain waves. What are they and where are they going? Yes. Your heart energy, where is it going? So I'm very consciously aware of what's being put out there. And I think all of us really should become that way.
I love that. And I'd like to, maybe if you could explain, if somebody was calling in or wanted to have a healing, how does that work with them? And how do you structure that? What does that look like?
So first of all, like I said, as a psychic, I'm like, okay, this is what's going to happen for you. As a healer, I get to start it out with like, what's your intention? What's your goals? What do you want to create? What's your passion? You know, I get to have a lot of fun with people. And sometimes it is fun because they're like, well, I want to build a new business. You know, I want to find love. And for other people, it's like, well, I'm in a not so great spot and I want to clear this emotionally or my physical health or my financial stability. And so then we start looking at, okay, where are the blocks at? Where's the disconnect from the thing that you want, that you say you want, to you actually having that thing? And that's where the psychic stuff comes in handy, because I get to look inside of a person's body or their mind or their energy and actually be able to pinpoint it. So I understand the flow of my life and why I've done everything I've done to this point, because it's so much easier just to look at it if they don't see it themselves. And you have to remember or learn that the brain, consciously, you can only process 2,000 bits of information per second. Subconsciously is 2 billion. So there's a lot of reasons people do what they do and they don't know why they're doing it, or they're unsuccessful and they don't know why, because all that stuff is hidden, but it's still running your life. So a person like me gets to go in there and dig a little bit, and we get to discover what those billions over there are. And we use the energy work to extract it. And most people can feel it. A lot of people will yawn, and they can't stop yawning when they're healing, because your body needs more oxygen when it's trying to do an instant healing, when it's trying to shift very quickly. And so a lot of people yawn. People have been telling me lately their ears pop, like their ears just start popping. You have people that will sometimes cry. Sometimes you'll laugh. You know, it's whatever energy needs to be released. You usually will end up feeling it tingling. And I just allow them to feel whatever they're feeling as things are moved. And then I just kind of update them with what I'm seeing. And then I ask them what they're feeling. What are you actually feeling? Because a lot of people will feel something lift up. They feel like I'm 10 pounds lighter. And it's interesting to know that you can actually release physical weight through healing. Because I remember one of the courses that I had went through, they were like, oh, this, you got to listen to the science behind this. But they would put people on a scale and write down their weight. They would do a healing on them and put them back on the scale. And people released up to 10 pounds just by doing a healing.
We're going to schedule a healing right away.
You know, it's interesting because generally healers are bigger people. Right. And I had got a hypnosis session that was telling me that as I learned how to balance that energy, the weight is actually going to come off, but that I actually couldn't release it until I knew how to do that, because look at what you're doing. You need a body that can contain that level of energy. And now I'm 100 pounds smaller.
Oh, wow.
And I'm still getting smaller, but it really, for people who are actual healers who need to or want to release weight, you don't need to, if you want to release weight, it's about balancing how you're using the energy, which does take time. It does not happen overnight, because we're all kind of in school. We're all learning how to use our energies. And so, but as you learn how to shift those frequencies and use the masculine and the feminine, the body will actually start to come back down, because you're learning how to use the energy that's not, you know, a danger to your body. You don't need a bigger body to run it. But for people who are just like, I'm not a healer, I just want to release weight, yeah, it might be a little bit easier.
That's incredible. Yeah. And so now you mentioned in the beginning that you had always really, healing was the thing. So when was the first time in your life that you knew that or experienced the healing aspect in your life?
When I was 20 and I did my Reiki class, because I actually wanted to be a massage therapist. My mother was like, oh, you're so good with your hands. And I was like, yeah, I should probably be a massage therapist. And the class that I wanted to take wasn't available for 6 months. And the idea of just sitting at home and doing nothing did not appeal to me at all. And so there was a college that taught a bunch of healing arts. And so I looked at the cost. I looked at if I had to take my clothes off or not. You know, I looked at what they had available, and they had something called Brima. And so I had signed up for Brima, but the woman, I was there at the office, and the woman said, don't worry about paying for it until like the day you come. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. So then the day comes for me to take this class. And at the time my car had broke down. So I'm taking the bus. Yeah. And it took me an hour and a half to get there. So when I get there, she's like, oh my God, where have you been? I've been trying to call you for the last hour. The class is filled up.
Oh no.
And I was like, I said, is there another class that starts today, same price, and I don't have to take my clothes off? And she said, yeah, it's Reiki. And I was like, what is it? And she's like, well, it's really hard to explain. And I said, just sign me up. And that literally is what started me on that healing path, was that whole experience. And Reiki changed everything for me because I started understanding how the energy worked. And then I started getting my own healings, and then I started healing people and getting my own healings and healing people. And it's just kind of lifted off from there. And it's been an amazing journey, to be honest with you.
And then for the psychic aspect, is that something you always had, or is that something you also did training to acquire, or how did that show up?
I've been psychic my whole entire life. I remember the only time I remember as a child having an extreme experience was when I was telling my father not to let my sister go to spend the night over somebody's house. It wasn't going to end it well. And he didn't listen to me. And I just thought adults were stupid. I mean, I honestly thought that everybody was seeing what I was seeing. And how dare you do that to my sister? And it wasn't until I was 15, somebody actually explained to me that you're just psychic. And I was like, oh, I'm different. They couldn't have seen what I was seeing because I'm different. It was like the aha moment, because I was always upset about that since I was like 6. And so it was that aha moment for me. And then people would start coming over to my house at age 15. People were coming to my house and they're like, do you see this, this, and this? And I would say what I saw. It wasn't this big reading. It was like, I'm just going to answer your question and be done. And it was always right. Yes. And so I was like, well, I guess I am psychic. Okay, there we go. Yeah.
Wow. Yes. Yeah. So that's something. And then you took so many courses to bring that out more.
No, I never took a class or a course. I moved to New Zealand. And when I moved to New Zealand, I got my own psychic reading, and I had this woman I would go to and ask questions. Like, she was like a mentor. And then I got like my own tarot cards, and I started doing readings for people. And I had dropped one of my tarot cards in a hostel, and she picked up the card and gave it to me. And I was like, well, would you like a free reading? Because that was really nice of you. And she said, yeah. So I give her a reading, and she was traveling somewhere else the next day. And about 3 or 4 days later, she comes into the door and she says, I traveled 3 hours back to talk to you. And she goes, I wanted to let you know that everything you told me happened within the time that I was traveling. And I was like, wow, this is kind of cool. And then when I came back to the States, I ended up working like in a metaphysical shop. And then I ended up on the news. And then the tabloids started calling me, and then magazines I started writing for, and documentaries in other parts of the world. You know, I think it was in France. And, you know, magazines in the Australia. So like literally the whole entire world just kind of clamored to find me. And it was just an amazing journey at the time. Yeah. Wow. I was on Sirius Radio as a guest for like 5 years. Oh my God, I love that. It was so much fun just to be on radio on a regular basis, talking to people. Like that was so much fun for me. So yeah, I've just kind of done a lot when it comes to the psychic work.
Now, how about for your children? Did that show up with you have children?
I have a daughter. Yeah. It's like, let her answer that. I asked her something the other day, and I was like, what do you think about this? And she's like, you're the psychic. Like, you figure it out. You know what I mean? I'm like, that's just rude. Thank you very much. If she has an intuition about something, she'll tell you, but she doesn't come out and just like, oh, I use this on a regular basis. She gives me that responsibility, because for her, that's responsibility. And she's like, I don't want that responsibility.
Got it.
But she's definitely psychic. I just don't think she'll ever claim to be psychic.
Right. Yes. Yes. It is so interesting how that happens, where it tends to be in the family a little bit, where some of us are a little more intuitive, or some are really psychic maybe, and then others are not so much. And, and I mean, my daughter, oh my gosh, she knew before, okay, we lost my son, and that when we had the funeral in January last year, and then she moved in with me, and she was, and we're flying, you know, and going to see everybody and doing everything every month. I work in Beverly Hills and have 2 homes and this and that. So we're always there. And she says, I have to go see everyone now. We have to go say goodbye to people. And I'm like, why are we saying goodbye? No, because we're not going to see them for a long time. I have to go see them now. And I'm like, what are you talking about?
Oh, wow.
And then the pandemic happens, and we weren't able to travel over and see people for a very long time. And I was like, and she was like, well, I didn't know it was that. I just had this. I mean, and I was like, okay, maybe it's, you know, post-stress, losing her best friend. Her brother was her closest friend and brother. They were so close. I thought it was stress, but she had I believe that was such a knowing. I mean, I thought, okay,
That was.
what are you going to say? But she was spot on. And I couldn't even fathom this pandemic thing. And yet she was right, and she got to see everyone, and so that was really important. I mean, she talks to everybody every day, but that on the phone, but it's still like she knew she needed to hug everybody and see everyone before this shutdown. So it's interesting. And she'd say, no, that wasn't psychic, that was just, you know. So, you know, it's a different, but yeah, she totally, I was like, no, that was definitely.
That was like, and it's interesting too, because that's how it works sometimes. Like sometimes you know why you're seeing what you're seeing. Like it just is, it kind of shows itself as a picture or a movie. But there's other times where you just know you have to do something, but you don't know the why. My mother, because you're talking about families, my mother told me, because she was against the whole psychic thing. I mean, she never really said it, but she was, you know, she raised me as a Jehovah's Witness, so I knew she was already against it. And when I finally explained to her how the psychic stuff is just science, you know, it's no different than people, you know, believing something completely different about the universe until they realized, you know, the science behind it. And so when I explained it to her, she goes, you know, that makes sense. I had experiences I hadn't ever told anybody about. I'm like, what happened? She told me at 5, she was floating above her body. She left her body and could see herself on the ground. But the most interesting one, she's driving down the road. My mother had to be at work at midnight, and she's driving down the road, and she said, I hear a voice that tells me to pull over and put the hood down, because she's on the freeway, to put the hood down. And she's like, no, I'm not doing that. Nobody's been under the hood. And the hood flies up and cracks the windshield.
Wow.
And she was like, now I understand why that information came. Yeah. But she said when she went home to tell my dad was like, oh, I was under the hood fixing something last night. I must have not shut it all the way.
Yeah. So there's that. I think there's that listening, and you hear something or you get a feeling, and you know, our minds, or you know, whatever belief systems we're raised in, sometimes tells us, okay, it needs to make sense. And if it doesn't make sense, we question it, and we don't listen to that. You know, no, don't let my sister go to so and so's house. Nope. Yeah, and we listen to, okay, that, you know, why wouldn't we? It doesn't make sense. But it's listening to that, whatever that is, that intuitive knowingness that, hey, there's a feeling that's not aligned, that if we listen to it 99.9% of the time, it's right, or it protects us from something beyond what we may never know what it protected us from. And that's okay. Yeah. So.
Yeah, that's so true. I'm thinking back when I was telling you about what happened when I was 6, that you just mentioned, telling my dad, and I'm sitting here thinking, I didn't question it. I didn't question what I got. I didn't question what I saw. It wasn't until I was older that I would actually question it, and sometimes not listen. Oh, yeah. And then I would regret not listening. And then I was like, I'm not doing that anymore.
Yes. Now listen to everything. Yes.
I get to be like a little kid again, where I'm just like, and my clients know, if you work with me long enough, like one of my best friends of 17 years, she gets readings from me. And if I'm like, no, and she'll be like, no, just no. And I'm like, no. And she's like, that's all I need to know. Like, we're not even going to find out why, because I don't need to know why, because sometimes you don't know, but you've experienced enough of not listening to know what happens when you don't listen. And so at this point, like, if there's no explanation that comes with it, I'm just, no. She'll usually find out why, but she'll listen. She's just like, I'm not fighting it.
Yes, yeah, definitely.
That's why.
Yes. So now, how can people? I know you have some kind of event maybe coming up, but yes, you want to share about that?
I do. I have a great event coming up. It actually starts here soon.
Okay.
It starts February, and just in time for February 14th, Valentine's Day. And it's called Making Miracles Happen. And this one is going to be the love and then the health edition. The love edition ends on the 14th, and the health edition starts on the 15th. And so this month is about celebrating love, and health is a part of love. And it's about people who are single, who are looking for love, people who are in relationships who want to better the love that they have. You want to learn how to love yourself more. And what happens is when you come from a place of love and your heart opens up, money comes in, Your purpose comes in. Everything comes in when the heart is magnetized to love. And so really, this is for everybody doing everything for any reason. And so I'm interviewing right now. It's 21 amazing speakers who are all going to tell you a little tidbit, some information. They have books. They're #1 best-selling authors who are going to tell you about love. So it's like a free masterclass, and all they have to do is sign up, and they get the email every day with one of these interviews.
Wow,
it's pretty incredible.
Cool. And then to sign up, how do they sign up for this?
It's makingmiracleshappen-series.com.
Okay.
And that is makingmiracleshappen-series.com.
Beautiful. Wow. Well, that's interesting. So, yeah, because when I first heard of healing with you, my mind only went to the physical body healing and not really the healing that shows up as a manifesting or reorganizing of your life or whatever's not aligned, just heals and realigns to what's best for your life. So can you explain a little bit more how that healing or, these practices work to heal other areas of your life other than just the physical body?
I had a client. I remember I went to her house because I would do like psychic parties for her. And I was telling you when I first started the healing work, all my psychic clients, I was like, can I give you healing? Yeah. And so I told her I would give her a healing. And I think she was making something like $50,000 a year. And she's in a really expensive place. So it's not a lot of money. And she said, I just want to make more money, but I don't want to leave the security of the job that I have. And I was like, let me do a healing on you for that. And so I worked with her and I saw where the block was. I actually saw it physically in her body. Like, oh, we can remove that. That's not a problem. So I removed this block. It took me about a half an hour to really get to the root of that block. I released it. That was it. I hear from her, I think it was about a year and a half later. And she says to me, I thought about it. Like, what changed? What changed? And she goes, the only thing I did different that year is I worked with you. Oh, but she said 6 months later, the fear was gone. She had this offer to go work for a little mom and pop company, which is something she would have never done because it doesn't sound secure. And she said, I went and I did it. She goes, now I make $250,000 a year. And she goes, I'm embarrassed about how easy it is. I'm embarrassed about, I don't do anything for this money. It was so funny. I laughed so hard. I was like, really? And she was like, not really, no. But that's kind of how it works. It's like you see something's not right. I mean, especially if you see your parents struggle. If you ever saw, I don't care how much money your parents have. If you see them struggle, you can learn to struggle too. And so for a lot of people, that struggle means not having money. But that struggle is, having something, but you continually losing what you have. You learn your behaviors, you learn these beliefs. And so if I can go in and see the structure of that belief and where it came from, and we can have it all come crumbling down, then all of a sudden your natural state of being is happiness. That's all we want. Whenever we say we want money, we want love, we want this, we want that, it's all because we think it's going to make us happy. Well, if we go straight for happiness, that's what I want. That's what I need my healing on. I just want to be happy. Everything comes in to support that. Your life starts to work in the way it was meant to, the way it was designed to for you, which is different for everybody. And so basically what I do is I allow you to be the authentic you so that everything can be aligned and come in.
Nice. And it's so much easier. So much easier. You don't have to chase anything. It just shows up however it shows up, and you have gratitude, and then more shows up. Whether that's love, relationships, financially, whatever it is, wellness. And I think that's the secret is letting go of the old stories a lot of the times, because we're stuck in that we have to not have happiness until we get XYZ, some kind of external thing outside of ourselves. We have to have the best relationship or the best shape or the best income or the best XYZ or the best home. And we have to, well, guess what? If we have the happiness where we're at now, that attracts, I think, all that other stuff to us. I mean, like, think about it. Would you ever want to be in a relationship with someone where you had to provide them with all their happiness? That'd be like, I don't think so. That's too much work.
It would be miserable.
That's right. So how could you be attractive to anyone if you wanted them to provide you with a happiness? And then, and the wealth too. Not only do I want you to provide me with happiness, but you better have a lot of money. Oh my God.
That's exhausting to think about. You literally have just exhausted me. Like thinking about that is like so tiring. Nobody wants that. Nobody wants that.
Why do I want a child or somebody that I have to provide all this? And what, there's no give and take. It's like, it's a genie. It's not a real person.
It's not. And it is. It would be like taking on a child.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, no, I want a relationship. I don't want that. Yeah.
Yeah. So what is that? That's not a lot of people I know that are like, oh, that's what you need. And then you'll find you'll be happy in your life. And I'm like, but you just stayed at my house for 2 weeks and we laughed our heads off and we were having so much fun. You said you'd never laughed so much in your whole entire life. And now you say, I need to go find this other person to have happiness. Are you serious? I mean, yes, you want companionship and other people in your life, but to add to and to have even more fun, but not that they provide it for you.
No.
Yes. That's the tip.
It's such a dark energy to think that. And you know where it comes? I had this realization because I teach this love course. And so I had this realization once that like we have 2 parents to fulfill our needs, but we expect one partner to do that same job. That's crazy. Like we had to have 2 parents, like 2 people to take care of us. And we're expecting one person to take this job. Like it's so insane to me. And so it's like, no, we need to rethink this. Like that's why you have friends. That's why you have a partner. That's why you have work. That's why you have other things, children, because happiness comes from so many different places that you create because you're creating your own happiness.
Yes. And then when you're in a relationship, you want to give, not just receive. It's reciprocal and it's a beautiful it's companionship. It's not a one-way situation or it's one way that ends really quick. It's like, okay, goodbye. Next. So that's so interesting. Wow. Well, I love the event that you're going to have. And that is something to definitely sign up for. Now, how can people also sign up for the healing or to work with you on that level?
Yeah, there's lots of ways to work with me because you can get like one-on-ones, you can do the webinars and all of that, but you can find it all out by simply going to adrienblackwell.com. It's that simple.
Beautiful.
I'm also on Facebook, but who knows what's ever going to happen to Facebook, so websites are more important.
Yes.
We never know.
Exactly.
Look at MySpace.
Yes. So adrienblackwell.com and sign up for a reading. That sounds wonderful. Or a healing. And then what is the master class again that the link for the class on the 14th?
On the 14th, it starts on the 1st. So it's first through the 14th is love, and then 15th through the 21st is health. So it's a 21-day event.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah. And what is the link for that one?
That is, you mean like the dailies?
Yes.
Because the interviews are 30 minutes each, but it's 2 people per day. So it's an hour.
Oh, nice. Wow. And so that's something you can watch live or you can watch the video recording of that. And that's a great way to bring in this new time as we're stepping into this new year. And time is kind of interesting right now because I'm like, okay, it was November and now it's going to be February. How did this happen?
Yeah, you know how I feel every day.
Yes.
And they say it gets worse the older you get. And I'm like, how do we slow it down? Please?
Right. Yes. And now we have to think about our young people do you remember? I remember being very young and somebody told me, a month. And a month to me sounded like a year.
No, I got one better for you. I remember when my mom, I specifically remember this. My mother told me she wanted to take a nap for an hour. And then I had to watch the clock for an hour and wake her up an hour. That was horrible. I was like 5. It was the worst time of my life. Like it felt like it was 1,000 years.
Right.
Yeah, I remember those days. I remember when it's like a week. We're gonna go to Disneyland in a week. Like it was horrendous. Like it was so horrible at the time. As a little kid, you're like, I'm gonna be dead by the time it happens.
Right.
I'm gonna be old.
I'm telling you. So, I mean, I think about a lot of people like my daughter and kids that are still very young, and we don't know when lockdown's going to end. There's not a time in some of our states. And it's like, we don't have a time. We don't even have a date. It could be like a month. It was supposed to be 2 weeks. So it is a tough
It
time.
was supposed to be 2 weeks, wasn't it? I
Remember
forgot
that?
about that.
2 weeks.
Yeah.
2 weeks. My daughter and I were like, it's not going to be 2 weeks. We knew that much. Can you imagine though? But it's a tough time. So give the younger people some extra room, extra love. I mean, just remembering what that was like, where a minute, a day, waiting to go to a date or something. And even that's tough right now. So we all got to get on your show for on the program for the 14th, the 1st through the 14th, or the 21 day, because that's something that's really tough right now. This whole love and relationship and bringing love into everything. Wow, definitely. So, all right. Well, our time is coming to an end, and I'd love to interview you again as things go, and hear how things progress for you. So thank you again for being a special guest. And for those listening, stay tuned. We'll be back after these messages. If you are just tuning in, this is the Sheila Mack Show on NBC's KCAA Radio, the station that leaves no listener behind. And today, I'd like to share with you a chapter in my new best-selling book, Bootstraps and Bra Straps, the formula to go from rock bottom back into action in any situation. So take a listen. Chapter 10. Self-care and spirituality. Lisa's husband passed away. As a couple, they had recently agreed that they were going to sell their house and move to a retirement community, and now she had to do that alone. Between the loss of her husband and the home her son had grown up in, Lisa was hit with a double whammy of grief. As anyone who has lost someone knows, grief causes stress levels to rise exponentially. On top of that, selling a house and moving, even when it's a planned, happier move, is also stressful and can be unsettling. You lose things, objects get broken, and you have to readjust to a new place. Lisa wasn't just moving away from the house where she'd raised her son. She was also leaving the neighborhood she'd lived in for 45 years, where her friends lived, and where she volunteered in the community. She felt she was losing everything in her life at once. Lisa and I started talking because she needed some support through all these decisions and upheaval. She was even overwhelmed with things she was usually quite good at, her paperwork and taxes, because of all the changes she was going through at once. As we talked, she told me how she took care of her husband, her son, and her community. But she had never taken time for herself, and now she was faced with too much time. I gave her the challenge of doing one thing for herself every day, as if she was doing it for her husband or close friend. If someone showed up on her doorstep in pain, stressed out, or going through something, Lisa would drop everything to help that person. Now, though, that person would be her. She was going to give herself as much attention, honor, and love as she gave to so many other people. And I asked her to send me pictures of her doing these things, so she would be held accountable. At first she was like, "Are you crazy?" I promised her it would help, even though she thought it would be dumb. For me, I told her, do it for me if you're not going to do it for yourself. The first day, Lisa sent me a picture of herself getting her nails done with the text, "I haven't had my nails done in months, not since before Dave got sick. It felt so good, and you were right. I kind of needed that break."
Great, I replied. What are you doing tomorrow? From survival mode to self-care. When we hit rock bottom situations in life, it tends to send us into survival mode. And when we're in that place, we're so busy making ends meet, struggling with grief, loss, and pain, and dealing with whatever is going on that we don't have a choice but to eliminate some of the things we usually do. When we have to go to work, then go visit somebody in the hospital, then pick up your kids, and you still have to make dinner and maintain a certain level of cleanliness in your home, or whatever duties you have to do, taking an hour for yourself to go to the gym or meditate gets pushed aside. It's just today, you tell yourself, but then tomorrow comes and goes, and another day and another. The next thing you know, it's been a month or two, and then you really start to notice the difference. One day, you wake up and you're not who you used to be. When you aren't practicing self-care, it shows up all over. Maybe you're exhausted and not sleeping right. Maybe you're off your healthy diet. Perhaps you've pushed your meditation practice and it's showing up at work or with relationships. You start snapping at people you would never snap at. When you're already at rock bottom with one situation and then you realize how many of your healthy habits went in the fallout, it can be overwhelming. You've hit another rock bottom and you may be looking around and thinking, how do I get from here back to where I was? You start over. One step at a time. Starting over sounds scary, but there is good news. Your muscles have memory. Your body remembers healthy eating, and you can catch up on your sleep, but it's not going to happen in one day. It took you more than one day to reach this rock bottom place. One day of not cleaning up doesn't bring a mess into your life. One day of extra spending doesn't necessarily lead to a negative cash flow situation, so it's going to take a few days or even weeks to get back to where you were. The fastest way to start climbing up from rock bottom is to take small steps and focus on little wins. Do one small chore that's fallen by the wayside, and then one reward to yourself, and do one small act of self-care too. As you do one, the other becomes easier, and you climb back up from your rock bottom. Once you've taken the first step and have that first little win, you can take another. Maybe tomorrow you'll clean one part of your house or deal with one bill that got thrown into a pile. Set a goal or a timer, and once you reach that number or that time, stop and take some time to reward yourself for the progress you've made. Just for tonight, take 5 minutes to meditate. It doesn't have to be the whole hour that you used to do, as long as you're doing something. Maybe you're starting over with your budget, so you can't go get a massage or facial or have a spa day right now. Just for today, try doing your nails at home, or just for this afternoon, take a 10-minute walk. Anything that leaves you thinking, oh, that feels better, after you do it. You can even schedule appointments for time to spoil yourself a little, even if you just mark enough time in your calendar for simple things like lighting a candle and meditating, taking a walk or a nap, or watching a movie, something that's just for you. You'll still have to take the right actions and take care of the things you're required to care for in your life. But you can also honor an appointment with yourself as much as you show up for the other people or situations or emergencies that threw you into survival mode in the first place. Your body and your mind need that break. They need a respite in order to continue getting you from that rock bottom place back into your life. Without it, it's like not putting fuel in your car and expecting to go on a road trip. You know that sooner or later, you're just going to run out of gas. With your brain and body fueled up and ready to go, however, you will be able to come up with new strategies for resolving whatever issues come up. You define your self-care. You have to take care of yourself before you help all the other people that you care for. Let me say that again. You have to take care of yourself first. Self-care looks different for everybody. It may include meditating, praying or another spiritual practice, doing yoga, walking, running, lifting weights, playing sports, playing a musical instrument, seeing a movie, dancing, journaling, reading, being in nature, gardening, horseback riding, getting your hair or nails done, getting a facial or massage, painting a picture or creating art, sleeping in or taking a nap as a gift to your body, just sitting and being happy doing nothing. What do all these things have in common? They are activities that you do for you. And if you're not used to practicing self-care, how do you get started? Self-care is individual. It's whatever fills your soul, not anybody else's. So first, think about what fuels you. You may have to go back in your memory a couple decades to find something you used to love that has fallen away in your life. When I was a kid, I was on the swim team. That was my meditation. When things were going wrong at home, I would go swim laps for hours. I still like to swim whenever I can. It doesn't feel like working out. Swimming energizes me. I just lose myself in the quiet, peaceful rhythm. It's the best medicine in the world for me. A friend I used to go to the spa with loves being in the wilderness. For her, it is heaven. Her favorite vacation of all time was a hiking trip where she carried everything in a backpack, went to the bathroom in bushes, and swam naked in the lake. She was one with nature, and that was a spiritual experience for her. That wouldn't do it for me. I liked the spa because it was elegant. We got massages every day and had a chef preparing our meals. They took care of us. Putting on a backpack, walking across the country, and sleeping in the cold woods would be torture for me. Self-care is different for everyone. Your partner's definition and your child's definition and your definition of passion and relaxation are probably all going to differ. You have to honor those differences and evaluate what that is for you. How are you going to take a break? What is your release? How do you meditate and relax and refuel? What are those things you've done throughout your life that have caused you to lose all sense of time? When you're in that flow state, so connected with whatever you're doing that nothing else matters, it gives you that break and that sense of peace. I also would like to share with you some other things that I also offer. I do have Mastermind live weekly courses, and those are available at SheilaMac.com, SheilaMac.com. I have to let you know something, just between you and me. This book is not one size fits all, just like a pair of boots or a bra. So the formula is designed to help you through any situation. I'd love for you to grab a copy of my new best-selling book, Bootstraps and Bra Straps, the formula to go from rock bottom back into action in any situation. It is now available on Audible as well as on Amazon and Kindle and at www.sheilamac.com.